Good evening, and here are today's Tropics for October 5th, 2019. Please note I'm not a meteorologist, and these videos are just a collection of my thoughts and opinions about the storms that I'm talking about. And for any decision making, please consult the National Hurricane Center, your local officials, or your National Weather Service office. So today I'm looking at two areas that are highlighted for development, and Tropical Storm Hagibis right here. So if we go back to the first two kind of systems, the first system isn't here yet, but you can see the kind of beginnings of the first system. This is a very strong extratropical low here, right now, or not quite right now, early tomorrow morning. This is the upper level divergence. So these are positive values. So you're getting the upper divergence, which is rising air, and this is basically helping to strengthen this low, and you can see it's very strong, 954 millibars. And you can see through here you have kind of an upper ridge type feature. This is the cold front, and and here something you usually see in cold fronts. You've got some lows embedded in here, because if you remember, a cold front is basically a trough. You have kind of flow going like this, so you have some troughing over here, and that can help spin up lows, especially if they do kind of dip into warmer water where they can form convection and become tropical. You usually see that happen in Mexico, but sometimes once in a while they happen out in the open Atlantic, and the cold front is dipping into some warmer water, not quite 26 degrees Celsius, but it is, given that it's looking to form from a cutoff low, that cold pool loft will help steepen those lapse rates and help form convection. So yeah, it starts from here, and yeah, you have this upper trough here, and that's helping to support this low, and you have this upper ridge over the eastern part of North America. This moves east, so this is about mid-afternoon Eastern time on Monday. Yeah, you can see here that the upper ridge that was previously over here has now moved eastward over the Atlantic. And with that is a very strong push of wind aloft here, so the jet stream is extending to the east, and this is pushing the upper trough that was behind this low to the east, especially with higher latitude, so it is kind of tilting a bit more progressive at this point. And this flow doesn't really exist. This flow doesn't really exist over where this bottom part of is, given that this upper ridge is pushing the jet stream further north. This kind of area is getting caught in some weaker flow, which means that it is at this point getting cut off from the trough that's still embedded within the jet area. So this is the developing cutoff low. You can see there's a surface low that has formed, very weak, but there's a surface low under some of the upper divergence. Looking here, this is early on Tuesday morning. You can see that this push of wind has really matured, basically, and has cut off a lot of that troughing. You can see there's a tiny kink in the jet stream, but it's not really too major. There's some kind of troughing here, but troughing right around here, but this kind of low is almost closed and essentially cut off at this point, as it's embedded within some generally weak flow. Given that there's an upper ridge around here and an upper low around here, there is some flow kind of pushing this upper low a bit to the southwest, and there is similar flow pushing the surface low to the southwest as well. It's likely that this one will end up being kind of the dominant one at the surface, because it does enjoy that upper level divergence, but it's also under this upper low, which really decreases the shear obviously, because it's under an upper low, it would be subtropical, but yeah, it is kind of supported under here more than this system, which is in that upper divergence. But as you can see, that flow is really hitting it, so it's going to be very sheer at this point. This is this system. This is basically its one chance to actually strengthen. It has a very, very brief window where it can intensify because shear will be low. The waters, they won't be that warm, but they will be warm enough given that there is an upper low, which is, again, increasing those lapse rates so you can get beefier convection with cooler water. But you can see they start to get decoupled because of the float. The surface is a bit more northeast, or a bit stronger. So you have these kind of these two lows not moving in sync. Instead, the upper level low, which is around right here, starts to get displaced to the east or east northeast of the surface low, which means that given that a lot of the upper divergence is on like the southeastern side of the upper low, that means you're not getting as much of that with this system, and it is butting up against some of that upper convergence at the upper levels, which means there's some sinking air, which isn't very great for convection. And also, that means it's not protected by this weak flow in the middle of the low. Instead, it's starting to feel some of that very strong flow of the north. So you might see some, or you will see some at this point. You'll see some northerly shear starting to affect the system. So this is when it probably won't be able to really strengthen, because any convection it's firing, if there is any, will be displaced to the southwest progressively more with time. You can see the flow levels here. There's a ridge around this area, which is pushing, which is pushing this system to, which is pushing the system to the generally west-southwest. And this flow is a bit stronger than the upper level flow, which again decouples the system. You can see that it's not very strong in the first place. There's a small area where it's closed, but yeah, it's not very strong. So it's probably going to be some kind of like some weak subtropical cyclone that maybe gets a name. But if it ends up doing it, it'll be probably pretty brief and very weak. It's not going to affect land pretty much at all, just because it is way out here. It is the nearest landmass is Bermuda, but even then, it's probably going to end up dissipating and not really be much of note by the time it nears there. And then you can see it continues moving that way, and at this point, this is Thursday, very early morning. At this point, it's pretty decoupled. The upper level low is way off here. So, and you have the surface low over here. So at this point, it's not having really much of that upper divergence. And you can see these wind barbs. These are like basically almost hurricane force wind at 200 millibars. That is basically shredding the system. So it's not going to be probably firing convection at all at this point, because there's insane shear, and at this point it's most likely to be weakening and kind of just fading away. Right here you can see kind of coastal system. Here is a possibility that this also becomes a subtropical system, again given that it is near that upper trough, which is supporting it with that upper divergence. It can strengthen a bit due to the rising air kind of evacuating air outside its region, which allows for pressure falls. And yeah, there's a possibility, 40% chance on the latest tropical weather outlook from the National Hurricane Center. So it's not going to be like this system where it kind of fizzles out. Instead, it's going to kind of move slowly around this region, and you can see it's quite close to the northeastern coast. you can see here at the low levels that it's got a very broad circulation, so this is another indication that it is subtropical, not fully tropical. Yeah, it's got a very, very large circulation for just like not really mature system, and you can see the winds are pretty strong. Well, these are more gusts than surface winds, but it's likely that if this does end up happening like this, then you will be seeing some higher winds on the northeast coast, and a lot of these are onshore, so it might mean like some kind of rip current activity and just kind of danger in the water here. But other than that, there shouldn't be any major effects. It kind of stalls out here and then kind of moves to the northeast as it gets picked up by a trough, given that it is October at this point. But there is likely going to be some kind of impact with regards to wind from the system, just given its proximity to the coast. Now, if we look over at this tropical storm, so this is Hagibis. I apologize if I mispronounced that. Anyway, you can see that it's pretty well defined now. You got this very well defined curved band around the core, though this is likely intensifying. If it could even be rapidly intensifying, given that it's gotten a lot well defined. You can see this, yeah, there's that curved band, and at this point it'd be building kind of an inner core as it wraps around, and eventually it closes, which forms an eye wall. So it's strengthening. You have a good upper level outflow, so favorable environment, and it's likely to become a strong typhoon, probably, or possibly even a super typhoon. The GFS here really likes it. Takes it down to 933 millibars at this point. So this is early on Wednesday morning. You can see it's very strong. There's some winds approaching Category 5 strength, but this is again 850 millibar wind, so it's likely not going to be that strong at the surface. These are more kind of the winds you'd see mixed down in gusts, but it's still going to be a very strong cyclone at this point. You can see that it is very strong too, because it has a very well-defined signature at 200 millibars. So this is a sign of a very strong cyclone. Yeah, just you can see it's pretty unanimous here that it is a very strong tropical cyclone at this point. This is the official forecast. Well, not quite official for the West Pacific, but this is the forecast from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. And you can see and hear, zoom that in for you because it's a bit hard to see, but you can see it strengthens pretty quickly per the forecast. It gets up to 130 knots, which is a super typhoon per the kind of like naming, or not naming, but yeah, this is supposed to be basically a super typhoon in about 4 days per the forecast. So this is these 2 points here. You can see before that it becomes a like a lower end typhoon passing the Mariana Islands here. So this is kind of, I'll zoom in, but this is pretty near to the areas that were impacted by Super Typhoon U2 last year. So this kind of area. So unfortunately, this tropical cyclone is approaching the area, which we don't want to hear because you don't like they're still recovering from that storm. So I don't want another one to set them back. So it's likely to be a dangerous typhoon at this point. There are indications that it'll curve out to the north and impact Japan while becoming extratropical, but that is more than 5 days out and isn't really something we'll look at quite yet. We should be more focusing on the impacts in these islands that it's expected to pass near or over. Anyway, that's about it for tonight. If you have any feedback, I'd appreciate it, and thanks for watching.